A racist officer mocks an elderly black woman at a cafe in front of silent onlookers. His arrogance drips with entitlement. But her calm presence and one chilling sentence shift the atmosphere. The first crack appears in his illusion of power. "We don't serve you people here." The words sliced through the air like a whip. Heads didn't turn immediately. It was that kind of silence. Heavy, stretched, soaked in tension no one wanted to touch. The fluorescent lights inside Miller's cafe buzzed faintly overhead, mixing with the soft clink of spoons against ceramic cups. A weekday lunch crowd, mostly suits and uniforms. Some shifted in their seats, some didn't move at all. Officer Bradley Cooper leaned one arm against the glass pastry counter, his other hand resting casually on the butt of his holstered gun. His badge gleamed under the lights. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. His smirk did the work. Gunt. Woman standing across from him looked about 65. Dark cocoa skin, pressed navy skirt, a delicate ivory scarf draped around her neck like dignity made visible. Her hands were clasped around a slim black cane, the kind with a polished silver handle. She hadn't spoken yet. "Ma'am," he continued, voice soaked in mock courtesy. "Maybe you wandered in here by mistake. Happens at your age. There's a shelter 2 blocks that way. They give out free coffee." A few customers chuckled nervously. One woman cleared her throat but didn't speak. The woman didn't move. She slowly scanned the room. The tired eyes of the barista, the downcast face of a black teen wiping a table, the stiff backs of white patrons pretending not to hear. She was used to this. Not the insult, the silence, the cowardice. She'd seen more of it than they ever would. Her gaze returned to the officer. Calm. Still. "I ordered a medium chai latte," she said. Her voice was soft but unshakable. "Name's Lena." Bradley grinned wider. "Well, Lena, unless you're planning to buy the whole cafe, I'd suggest you move along." She tilted her head slightly, not with confusion, with calculation. "The way a chess master studies a board." "No," she said simply. The grin faltered. Bradley stepped closer, now towering above her. "You think I'm playing, lady? This isn't a negotiation." Then, slowly, Lena unclasped her purse. She didn't rush. She didn't flinch. One smooth motion, like she'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. She pulled out a small leather folder and opened it. Bradley's eyes dropped. His grin died. The folder held a Department of Justice federal seal. Beneath it, a laminated card with an embossed title. Senior Inspector, Civil Rights Division, Lena A. Jennings. "Maybe," she said, "you should Google me." He took half a step back. The cafe, seconds ago just a passive bubble of denial, began to shift. The barista's eyes widened. The black teen wiping tables straightened up. A businessman in the back slowly lowered his cup. Lena placed the badge back into her purse and adjusted her scarf. "Now," she said, "I believe I asked for a medium chai latte." Then she turned and walked toward a corner table, tapping her cane against the tile. Each step a gavel strike. Bradley didn't move. His jaw clenched. The smirk was gone. The silence wasn't with him anymore. Now it watched him, judged him. Soft clatter broke the tension, the barista placing a drink on the counter. "Miss Lena," she called, voice trembling, "your chai latte's ready." Lena didn't look back, but the whisper had already started to ripple through the room like wildfire. "She's DOJ. She investigates cops. He messed up badly." And Officer Bradley Cooper, once the loudest voice in the room, suddenly felt very, very small. He didn't know it yet, but 3 minutes from now he'd be begging to save what was left of his career. "We don't serve you people here." The words fell like thunder in a church. The moment paused, like the cafe itself held its breath. Inside Miller's Cafe on Main Street, the afternoon rush hummed softly beneath the fluorescent lights. People tapped away on laptops, sipped macchiatos, flipped pages of newspapers. But now there was a stillness, not silence. The sound still existed, but it no longer felt ambient, it felt cautious. Officer Bradley Cooper stood behind the counter as if he owned the place, his right thumb hooked over his belt, index finger curled slightly over the holster. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. The smirk on his face was loud enough. A few nearby patrons stiffened, unsure whether to look up or look away. Across from him stood Lena Jennings, tall for her age, with posture so straight it challenged the ceiling. 65, maybe older. Dark brown skin that glowed with age-earned wisdom. A silver-studded cane in her right hand, an off-white scarf around her neck. Elegant, not extravagant, her face was calm, too calm. "You heard me," he continued. "We don't hand out handouts here. There's a soup line down 5th. She looked around, not in panic, not in fear, just observation. The way someone might take in a painting. A barista froze behind the espresso machine. A teenager mopping. Near the window held his breath. A white couple, seated at the center, glanced up, then down. A man near the door opened his mouth, then closed it. No one stood up. No one said a word. Lena turned back toward him. "I ordered a medium chai latte," she said. Her voice was soft, but it reached the entire cafe like it belonged there. Cooper chuckled. "Let me guess. You think you're entitled to that just for walking in here?" Lena blinked once, slowly. "I paid for it, and my name's on the cup." Bradley tilted his head. "Oh, you got a name, huh?" His voice dripped condescension. His tone said everything his badge didn't. He leaned in just a little, not for aggression, for domination, like a wolf sniffing weakness. "And what do you do, Lena, He tapped a finger against the counter. "You one of those community activists? Or just another angry grandma trying to go viral?" More chuckles now. Faint, guilty. One woman whispered something to her husband. Another man adjusted his tie and stared at his phone. Lena didn't flinch. Then came a small action, quiet but thunderous in its symbolism. She unclasped her handbag. The purse was clean leather, minimalist. She reached in and drew out a slim wallet, clicked it open. What she pulled out next made even the barista inhale sharply. A federal badge, Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. Senior Inspector, Lena A. Jennings. The seal caught the light like a knife. The chuckles died. Cooper's smirk froze mid-tilt. For a second he didn't breathe. The silence this time wasn't uncertain. It was charged, like something had just shifted in the air, something fundamental and permanent. She held his gaze. No anger, no gloating. "Just truth. You should Google me," she said. It wasn't a threat, it was a statement of inevitable reality. Cooper's hand dropped from his holster. He took a step back. That badge meant one thing: oversight, and oversight meant reports. And reports meant the one thing he feared most: exposure. She closed the wallet, slipped it back into her purse, and smoothed her scarf. "I believe," she said, "I asked for a medium chai latte." She turned, walked toward a booth by the window. Each click of her cane on the tile echoed like a verdict. The spell broke behind the counter. The barista stumbled into action, nearly knocking over a cup. "Chai latte for Lena," she called, voice higher than she meant. A hush wrapped itself around the room again. People watched now. They watched like they were seeing for the first time, and then the whispers began. "Did she say DOJ? She's with the Justice Department. She investigates cops. Oh, my God." Bradley didn't move. His face flushed, his hands clenched and unclenched. The authority he wore like armor now felt like weight, dragging him down. And Lena. She sat, took a small sip of her latte, and looked out the window. Then her phone buzzed. She picked it up. "Go ahead." A voice came through, calm, direct, professional. "Ma'am, we've confirmed your location. We're outside. 2 plainclothes, 1 camera operative." She didn't nod, didn't react. "Wait exactly 2 minutes," she replied. "Then come in." She ended the call. Cooper had started pacing near the register, muttering. He looked toward the exit like he might bolt. But the thing about ego, it freezes when confronted by truth it doesn't expect. Lena took another sip. Then she opened her leather-bound journal and began writing. Her pen moved smoothly, not frantic. She'd done this before. Exactly 2 minutes later, the bell above the door rang. 2 men in suits entered. Another walked in with a discreet body cam. They didn't announce themselves, didn't need to. Their presence was the announcement. "Miss Jennings," one nodded. She looked up. "That's him," she said, pointing without looking at Cooper. The officer's jaw dropped. "Wait, hold on. What the hell is this? You set me up?" "No," she said. "You exposed yourself." Then she rose, folded her notebook, and nodded toward the door. The agents flanked her like a security detail, not because she needed it, but because the department knew exactly what she meant to the people watching. And Bradley, he started following. "Wait. No. Listen. I didn't mean anything. This was just a—" But the man with the camera stepped between them. "Sir," he said, "we need you to remain on site." Cooper froze. Lena paused at the door. She turned back, looked him in the eyes, and for the first time she smiled. "Not. Why, just enough. You thought I was powerless," she said. "Turns out you were just uninformed." And with that, she stepped outside into the daylight, leaving behind a man who, just minutes ago, had laughed without consequence, and now couldn't stop shaking. The door shut behind her, and with it the room exhaled. No one dared speak above a whisper. No one moved too fast. Lena Jennings had left the building, but something about her presence lingered, like a memory you couldn't scrub out, like a song stuck on repeat. Her words hadn't just shifted. The energy in the cafe, they'd buried something beneath it, something that made the walls feel tighter. Officer Cooper stood stiff near the front counter, his hand still twitching from the ghost of authority he no longer held. The barista wouldn't look him in the eye. The teen janitor had disappeared to the back room. Even the customers who might have sided with him a moment ago were now half expecting a news van to pull up any second. "Sir," came a soft voice. Cooper turned. The younger plainclothes agent who had entered with Lena now stood near the pastry case. Not aggressive, just observant. "I need you to sit down," Cooper scoffed. "You can't order me around. I'm on duty." "Not anymore." That froze him. The words weren't shouted. They weren't dramatic. But they cut deeper than any insult. "What the hell do you mean by that?" he asked, stepping forward. The agent calmly raised a tablet. He tapped the screen once, turned it toward him, a paused video frame. It showed Cooper leaning into Lena's face, smirk wide, body language hostile. The subtitle under it? "We don't serve you people here." "Where'd you get that?" Cooper asked, voice cracking. The agent didn't answer, because truth didn't need explanation. Meanwhile, 3 blocks away, Lena was already seated in the back of a black unmarked SUV. Her latte untouched, her face unreadable. One hand rested on a small file folder in her lap, the kind held together by 2 brass pins and filled with quiet devastation. Across from her sat Special Counsel Denise Marlowe, mid-40s, razor-sharp eyes, mouth set like stone. She didn't waste time on greetings. "Are we clear to initiate the full report?" she asked. Lena gave the smallest nod. "He gave us everything we needed. Videos already on secure servers. Civilian footage matched our internal angles." Denise flipped open her laptop. "This one's going to sting the department." Lena looked out the window. "I'm not here to sting them," she said. "I'm here to disinfect." Denise glanced at her. "You're cold today." "No," Lena replied. "I'm tired." Back at the cafe, Cooper had finally sat, not because he was told, but because standing made him feel exposed. A sense of unraveling crawled through his veins. It wasn't the first time he'd said something like that, but it was the first time someone important had been listening. His phone buzzed, not a call, not a text, a notification. Officer Cooper caught harassing federal agent. DOJ official confirmed footage trending. 12K retweets in 15 minutes. His skin went cold. He looked up. The barista, once afraid of him, now whispered to the teen janitor. Their eyes flicked toward him like he was already history. He stood abruptly. "I'm leaving!" The agent blocking the door didn't move. "You can go," he said, "but not far." Cooper stepped outside into the sunlight that now felt too bright. He didn't notice the man in a tan hat across the street raising a phone. Didn't see the lens zoom in. Didn't hear the silent storm being fed, frame by frame, to the world. Lena's SUV pulled up to a federal building 10 minutes later. As she exited, a woman in a grey suit with a clipped ID badge met her at the curb. "Judge Holloway wants to see you before 5, she said. "He's requested sealed chambers." "Is it about this morning?" "Not just this morning." Lena raised an eyebrow. Inside the building, down 2 floors and through one steel-reinforced door, sat the room they all called the Pit, a place where no cell signal reached, no windows existed, and nobody lied. Every conversation was recorded, reviewed, filed. This wasn't a courtroom. This was a war room. Lena placed her file on the table. Denise plugged in a secure hard drive. A projector hummed to life, casting the frozen image of Cooper's face mid-smirk onto the wall. Every person in the room stared, not at him, but at what his expression represented. "I've run this division 11 years, one man muttered. "I've seen sheriffs curse, judges threaten, even a congressman spit on a Mexican nurse. But this is calculated dehumanization." Lena didn't blink. She just said, "He's not the root. He's a leaf." Another woman spoke up. "Do we leak this to the media or build the case first?" "Both," Lena said. A pause. "You sure?" someone asked. She tapped her cane lightly against the floor. "He made his choice. Now he gets his consequence." Later that evening, Officer Cooper sat alone in his apartment, badge on the table, gun locked away, bottle half empty. His phone buzzed again. He answered without looking. "Cooper," a voice said, hard and flat. "Chief," he stammered. "I can explain." "No, you can't. Listen, I didn't know who she was. I thought she was just some—" The chief didn't let him finish. "You're suspended, indefinitely." "What?" "There's a DOJ investigator tearing apart our case files as we speak. They have enough dirt to drown the precinct, but we're done." Clicked silence. Cooper sat still. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Inside, his television, muted and unwatched, flashed a headline. "Federal agent humiliated by local cop. Systemic investigation launched." And back in the federal building, Lena stood before Judge Holloway, hands clasped behind her back. "You know what happens next?" the judge asked. "I do." He raised an eyebrow. "And you're ready for it?" She nodded. "Sir, I was born ready." And for the first time that day, maybe the first time in years, the judge leaned back, folded his arms, and smiled. "Bradley." Cooper stared at his ceiling, unblinking. Still, the ceiling fan spun slowly overhead, casting rhythmic shadows across the room. His badge, once a symbol of power, now sat on the kitchen counter like a piece of evidence in a murder case. His uniform was in a pile on the floor, untouched since he'd dropped it after the call. The bottle on the table was empty. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it. Buzz again and again. Finally, he grabbed it with a grunt. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A voice. Calm, controlled. "Mr. Cooper, this is Sergeant Ramirez, Internal Affairs. We'll be arriving tomorrow at 9 a.m. to begin the formal interview process. We advise you to have union representation present." Click. No pleasantries. No room to respond, just procedure, cold and sharp. He dropped the phone on the couch and buried his face in his hands. Somewhere in downtown, the city buzzed with new life. Protests were forming. Twitter was on fire. Instagram reels and YouTube. Shorts were dissecting his face, his tone, his smirk. "Do your research." Lena Jennings, justice served. Meanwhile, Lena stood in her living room holding a cup of jasmine tea. Her apartment was warm, old, filled with books. Every shelf stacked with court records, legal texts, and framed photos of black icons in quiet rebellion. Baldwin, Tubman, Marshall. The television was muted, but headlines screamed, "Federal Agent. Exposes cop in cafe confrontation. Who is Lena Jennings?" She sipped her tea and turned away from the noise. On her desk, an envelope sat unopened, marked "Confidential, U.S. Senate Hearing, Civil Rights Panel." Denise had dropped it off 2 hours ago. The hearing was scheduled in 3 days, and it wouldn't be private. They wanted Lena to testify on national television, but that wasn't the problem. The problem, and the reason she hadn't opened it, was the anonymous letter tucked inside. No return address, no signature, just one line typed. "If you testify, we release everything." She'd seen threats before, but this one didn't feel like noise. It felt surgical. Lena opened the envelope anyway, took out the Senate briefing papers, read the first paragraph aloud. "Miss Lena A. Jennings, Senior Inspector, Civil Rights Division. In recognition of your investigative contributions and undercover efforts regarding systemic bias in law enforcement, the Subcommittee on Public Safety invites you to testify as a key witness." Her voice trailed off. She closed the folder and leaned back, eyes closed. 3 states away, in a basement lit by old desk lamps and budget monitors, 2 men watched her interview on loop. "She's dangerous," said one. "If she connects Cooper's history to the precinct's suppression orders." "She will," the other replied. "She always does. They weren't lawmen, not officially. Contractors, former military, retired intel. Their job was to clean up problems before they made it to hearings." "Option A?" one asked. "No, too obvious." "B? Leak the case. Drown the story. Destroy her credibility." The screen showed Lena turning toward the camera, face composed, posture regal. "She's the wrong person to underestimate," one of them muttered. Cooper stood outside his precinct at 8:57 a.m. He looked up at the building, the place that had once been his kingdom. Now, it felt like a cage. His name had already been scraped off the locker inside. His photo removed from the officer. Bored. Co-workers he used to drink with wouldn't even answer his calls. A black car pulled up. 2 men in suits got out. Internal affairs. They didn't speak. They just walked past him up the steps like he didn't exist. Cooper followed. The interview room was small, grey, windowless. A camera blinked red in the corner. The table was metal. The chairs, stiff. A bottle of water was the only comfort. "State your name," the woman asked. "Bradley Marcus Cooper." "Current occupation?" He hesitated. "Suspended officer, 5th District." She clicked her pen. The questions started. Rapid fire. Tone, posture, intent. Had he used that phrase before? Were there past incidents? Did he know the woman's identity? He tried to defend himself. "I thought she was just someone trying to start a scene." "You mean a black woman with authority?" The man across from him interrupted. He froze. "Would you have said that to someone else? Someone white? Someone male?" The room got colder. Cooper felt sweat forming under his collar. "Do you understand," the woman said, "that the department is not just investigating you, but the precinct's entire complaint record for the last 5 years?" His mouth went dry. "We've already pulled over 20 body cam clips," she continued. 6 show racial profiling, 3 show verbal intimidation, 2 show excessive force. Cooper looked away. It wasn't just about the cafe anymore. They were building something bigger, and he was just the start. Back in Lena's apartment, she received a second envelope, this time hand-delivered, unmarked. Inside was a USB. She plugged it into her laptop. It auto-played, footage not of her, of Cooper. 4 years ago, a parking lot. A black teenager, a broken nose. No body cam that day, no report filed. She paused the clip. This wasn't public. Whoever sent this was on her side, but not above using shadows. A note attached to the drive read, "You're not alone, but you'll need more than a badge to win." She leaned back. Let the words settle. Then she smiled. At 6 p.m., Lena stood before the mirror, hair done, dark blue suit, gold pin over her heart. She didn't look nervous. She looked ready. Denise appeared behind her. They confirmed the broadcast. Live, CNN and E-SPAN. I know. They're gonna come hard. Background, history, anything they can. Let them. Denise stepped closer. You know what this means, right? Lena looked into the mirror one last time. It means they're scared. And as the cameras started setting up for the hearing, and as Cooper stared blankly at the suspension papers on his kitchen counter, and as a hidden team began uploading a vault of evidence labeled Operation Hollow Badge, a single line from Lena's earlier interview began trending online again. This time louder, bolder, unstoppable. I didn't come to expose a man. I came to dismantle a culture. And somewhere in a cold basement, one of the operatives whispered under his breath, "She's not here to testify. She's here to start a war." The city skyline blinked like a heartbeat, frantic, confused, gasping for rhythm. Across rooftops, and through glowing windows, screens blared Lena Jennings' name. Talk show hosts dissected the cafe footage. Commentators debated her silence, her smile, her badge. But beneath all the noise, a quieter shift was happening, one far more dangerous than social media heat. In the office of Deputy Commissioner Raymond Hale, the lights were dim. The door was locked, a phone call played on speaker. "I told you she was clean," came a raspy voice. "But she's not just clean, she's surgical." Raymond sat hunched forward, tie loosened, face pale. "This isn't just a bad PR week," the voice continued. "It's a reckoning, and the DOJ's building it around her." Raymond didn't respond. He glanced at the printed reports scattered across his desk. Internal affairs memos, complaint logs, Lena's undercover op-ed history. Most of it redacted, all of it damning for men like him. "She wants blood," the voice said, "and she's not afraid to get it with paperwork." A pause. Then, "You know what has to be done." Raymond hung up and dialed another number. Across town, Lena stepped out of a black car and into the studio lobby. Glass doors, polished marble, cameramen setting up rigs like soldiers preparing for combat. Denise flanked her side. "They'll try to bait you," she said. "Slanted questions, interruptions, manufactured outrage." Lena nodded once. "Let them try." A producer rushed forward. "Miss Jennings, right this way. We've briefed the anchors. Segment. Time is 7 minutes, but we may extend based on response." "Don't warn me," Lena said. "Warn them." Meanwhile, in a small cafe across the city, Bradley Cooper sat alone, cap pulled low, eyes locked on a TV bolted above the register. Lena's face filled the screen, confident, measured, unapologetic. "We are not dealing with bad apples," she was saying. "We are dealing with orchards that protect rot." The cafe went silent. Even the espresso machine quieted. Cooper looked away. His reflection in the window stared back, unfamiliar, ruined. A woman at the next table whispered, "Isn't that the guy who—" He stood up fast, chair screeching, paid in cash, left without finishing his drink. But outside, people still stared. Recognition wasn't something you could shake. Back in the studio, the interview went viral before it ended. Clips sliced into seconds. Captions added by strangers. Hashtags multiplying. By the thousands. System on trial. Just a Jennings effect. No more silence, and deep in the Capitol, phones began to ring. Senators, DAs, union heads. Everyone wanted the same thing. Silence. Damage control. Delay. But Lena's name was already out of their control. Denise watched the footage replay on a tablet in her office. The knock came at 10:17 p.m. She opened the door. A man stood there, mid-40s, well-built, eyes scanning behind him before speaking. "I was told to deliver this to you directly," he said. "A plain envelope, no return label, no logo." Denise took it, opened it. Inside, 6 printed screenshots, all emails, time-stamped, internal threaded conversations between precinct leadership discussing how to scrub bodycam footage from the Cooper incident. A digital cover-up in motion, attached a small sticky note. There are more, just not yet. Denise closed the door and locked it. They weren't just playing defense anymore. Someone inside the system wanted it to burn. At 3:02 a.m., Lena sat by her window. The city below was quiet, but her mind wasn't. She replayed everything. The cafe, the badge reveal, the threat note, the USB, the Senate hearing approaching. Her phone buzzed. A name flashed. Malcolm Jennings, her son. She answered, "Ma." His voice was warm, careful. "You okay?" "I am." He hesitated. "They're coming for you." "I know." A pause. Then he added softly, "You scared?" "No." "Because you've been here before?" "No," she said. "Because I'm not standing alone this time." The next morning, media vans circled the courthouse. Reporters camped outside. The city buzzed like a wire ready to snap. Cooper watched it all from his apartment. He hadn't shaved, didn't care. A knock echoed through his place. He tensed, opened. It slowly 2 men. Suits, dead eyes. "Mr. Cooper, you've been subpoenaed to appear before the Senate Civil Rights Panel. You are not under arrest. Yet." They handed him the envelope. He opened it, read the first line, "You will answer for your history." He laughed once, dry, broken, and closed the door. At the DOJ, Lena reviewed documents with her team. They'd built a full timeline, not just of Cooper, but of dozens like him. Patterns, suppressed complaints, missing camera footage, internal memos marked as training errors to disguise abuse. "This isn't one precinct," said Denise. "It's a blueprint." Lena leaned back. "If we show this, they won't just fire Cooper, they'll start replacing people from the top." "Good. Unless they stop us first." Lena looked at her. "Then we don't give them time." She picked up the phone. "Patch me through to the subcommittee chair." That night, the Capitol trembled, not from protests or headlines, but from the one thing it feared most: a black woman with truth, evidence, and a national audience. And she hadn't even taken the stand yet. The courthouse steps were a stage. His lawyer had stopped answering. Camera flashes lit the early morning like lightning. Reporters shouted questions, microphones extended like weapons. Protesters lined both sides of the marble path, holding signs that screamed in bold fonts, "Justice isn't optional. DOJ means accountability. Jennings speaks for us." And in the middle of it all, walking with unshakable calm, was Lena, blue-grey suit. Pearl earrings. Hair pulled back in a precise twist. No expression, no reaction, just presence. She climbed each step as if each one were an oath. Denise followed closely, briefcase in hand. Behind them, a trail of DOJ aides, analysts and security. Staff. No one spoke. No one needed to. The world already knew what was at stake. Inside, room 214 had been transformed. It didn't feel like a courtroom. It felt like a coliseum. Rows of senators lined the front bench. Media personnel stood, shoulder to shoulder at the back. Every seat was filled. Every hallway leading into the chamber had been cleared and swept 3 times. At the center, a long wooden table with a single microphone. Lena's seat. A staffer handed her a small placard. Lena A. Jennings, Senior Inspector, DOJ Civil Rights Division. She placed it in front of her and sat. The room shifted. It wasn't audible, but it was real. A change in the air. Like everyone had just realized this wouldn't be a formality. This would be history. The chairman, Senator Wallace Crowley, adjusted his mic. "This hearing is now in session." He paused. "Today, we are joined by Senior Inspector Lena Jennings, whose recent involvement in a widely publicized law enforcement incident has raised questions not just about one officer, but about a nationwide pattern of misconduct and systemic abuse." Another pause. We ask that all present conduct themselves with respect and discipline. Lena gave a slight nod. Senator Crowley turned toward her. Miss Jennings, you may proceed. Lena leaned forward, her voice clear, slow, unwavering. I'm here today not to testify about one man's behavior, but to shine light on a structure that protects that behavior. I'm here not for revenge, but for the truth. Click. Every camera in the room surged on. Outside, Cooper stood across the street, hoodie up. He watched from under the shade of a bus stop. People passed by without noticing him. The man whose face had been everywhere, now invisible. He watched Lena's face on the giant outdoor TV above the courthouse steps, watched her words spread like fire. Inside the chamber, Lena continued. For the last 2 years, I've worked as a silent observer in communities across this country. I've seen patterns, documented cover-ups, erased complaints, and promoted officers whose only real skill was silence. She held up a small red flash drive. This contains over 450 hours of footage, internal records, dozens of coordinated efforts to protect departments from accountability. Gasps echoed through the room. Some of the names on this list, she said, are in this very building. One senator immediately raised a point of order. Another demanded verification. Wallace Crowley banged the gavel. The witness will be allowed to continue. Lena didn't flinch. This is not about parties. This is not about politics. This is about power. Who holds it, who fears losing it, and who suffers in silence because of it? Someone in the back clapped. Then another. Security quickly shut it down, but the message had landed. Backstage, Denise received a text. She checked it. Her face froze. Lena noticed. Their eyes met. Denise stepped forward, whispering, "There's a breach. Cooper's case file just leaked. Online, unredacted." Lena blinked once. The timing wasn't a coincidence. They were trying to derail the hearing, but Lena only said one thing, "Let it burn." Senator Crowley leaned in. "Miss Jennings, can you name one example, just one, where a superior knowingly covered up officer misconduct?" Lena nodded. June 14th, last year. Officer Marcus Brandt falsified a report after tasing a 14-year-old black student in the back. His supervisor deleted the footage. "You have proof?" She reached into her case, pulled out a printed email chain, passed it forward. The clerk handed it to Crowley. He read, eyes widening. "Who else has this?" "Just us," Lena said. "For now. And if the DOJ fails to act?" "I've already secured a release order to over 20 media outlets. If silence wins here, the world will still know." Outside, phones began to ping. Notifications exploded. Cooper case file leaked. DOJ recordings drop live. Lena Jennings just named name. And inside a locked room 3 floors down, a security team watched in silence as federal networks began to collapse under the weight of simultaneous downloads. It was no longer a hearing, it was a reckoning. Then it happened. A man in the audience stood, tall, bald, black suit, not media, not law. Security moved to stop him, but Lena raised her hand. "I know him," she said. He stepped forward. "Madam Inspector, I'm here on behalf of the Inspector General." He handed her a sealed envelope. "Effective immediately," he announced. "The DOJ has authorized an emergency review of all internal police oversight operations across all 50 states. Crowley's jaw dropped. Lena opened the envelope, read it, smiled faintly, then stood. "You asked what justice looks like," she said. She held up the letter. "It looks like this." Outside, Cooper finally turned away from the screen. He walked. Down the sidewalk, slower now, no more hiding. He didn't know where he was going, but for the first time in his life, he knew what it felt like to lose power he never deserved. By the next morning, the country was awake in a different way. News. Tickers ran nonstop. Local stations interrupted regular programming. Phones buzzed with group chats on fire. Breaking, DOJ orders immediate oversight shakeup. Jennings testimony. exposes multi-state corruption links, civil rights unit, activates federal sweep operation. It wasn't just headlines anymore. It was movement, action, the kind that couldn't be spun away in a press conference. Inside the office of the Deputy Attorney General, phones rang off the hook. Aide after aide sprinted between rooms. At the center of it all, Lena sat at a conference table, surrounded by analysts and legal coordinators. On one wall, a map of the United States lit up in red, blue, and yellow, each color representing a different level of misconduct flagged from Lena's archive. "This precinct?" an analyst asked, pointing to a red dot over Arizona. "Full. Audit," Lena said. "And this one in Illinois? Start interviews, pull body cam servers." "What about this one?" another asked, circling a cluster in Louisiana. "Shut it down." Denise stood nearby watching. "You know this is going to make you a target," she said. Lena didn't look up. "I already was. Now I'm just visible." In a marble-walled building in D.C., 4 floors underground, a quiet panic was unfolding. Group of senators, attorneys, and law enforcement heads had gathered under tight security. Phones were left at the door, no recordings, no transcripts. "What's our exposure?" one demanded. "Severe," said a tech advisor. "Jennings has time-stamped reports, video evidence, chain of command documents. There's no legal buffer." "You're telling me she could bring down half the oversight network?" "I'm telling you," the advisor replied. "She already has. We're just watching it in slow motion." Someone else slammed a fist on the table. "We need to discredit her." Another voice spoke up, older, colder. "That ship's sailed. You think anyone's buying a smear campaign now? No. The only way out is sacrifice." "Who?" There was a pause. Then, "Start with Cooper. Offer him up. Publicly, frame him as a lone actor, call him an outlier." "And Jennings?" The older voice leaned forward. "She's not untouchable, not yet. We delay her momentum, maybe stall this thing, bury it in procedure." Back at Lena's office, Denise received a confidential message, a warning. From unknown subject, "Watch your 6 body. They're not going to hit you directly. They're going after your leverage." Denise showed it to Lena. Lena looked at her. "What's my leverage?" "You, your team, your sources." "No," Lena said quietly, "my leverage is proof." At that exact moment, a story broke. Cooper, formally charged by DOJ, first officer named in federal sweep it, hit the networks like a missile. Footage of Cooper's cafe incident looped across screens. His personnel files leaked online, not just redacted records, but full breakdowns of use of force violations, internal complaints, missed disciplinary actions. By noon, 3 more officers across 3 states were named. By evening, 12. Cooper sat on the edge of his bed, watching himself fall apart in real time. He hadn't left the apartment all day. Outside, reporters camped beneath his building. Protesters began arriving too. Some carried signs, others just carried phones. His union had issued a vague statement distancing itself. His world was shrinking faster than he could drink. He picked up the remote, threw it across the room. It shattered, but the headlines kept flashing. "The first domino falls. Lena Jennings isn't done." He buried his head in his hands. "I didn't ask for this," he whispered, but deep down, he knew that wasn't true. At a secure location, Lena met with 2 men in suits, not DOJ, but another branch. Intelligence. They didn't introduce themselves. One slid a folder across the table. "Someone's been trying to breach your team's and case archive." "How recently?" she asked. "Last night." "They failed, but they'll try again." Lena opened the folder. Inside, access logs, breach attempts, encryption activity. "You're saying this is internal?" "We're saying it's well-funded and scared." Lena closed the folder. "I want every copy of our archive backed up on private hardware. No cloud." "Already done." She stood to leave. One of them asked, "What happens if they come for you?" She paused. "They already have." Later that night, she returned home to find her door slightly ajar. She froze, didn't enter, called Denise, called backup. 20 minutes later, agents swept the apartment. Nothing stolen, nothing broken, but a single file sat open on her desk, her mother's obituary. It hadn't been there this morning. Denise's face went pale. They're personalizing it now. They're scared. Lena walked to the desk, closed the file, took a breath. This ends soon, one way or another. The next day, she held a press conference. Short, sharp, surgical. No one is safe from accountability. Not in this country. Not under my watch. We're just getting started. The crowd erupted. Camera lights flashed. Somewhere behind the wall of press, a man in a black coat turned and left early, speaking into a phone as he walked. Tell them she's going all the way. We need plan B. But there was no plan B, because Lena Jennings wasn't playing chess anymore. She was flipping the board, and the empire that built its walls on silence was starting to crack. As Lena's press conference ripples through every corner of the justice system, an unexpected whistleblower steps forward with explosive evidence. Meanwhile, the resistance against her grows desperate, and Cooper is pulled into a trap that could make or break everything Lena's built so far. Full chapter. Content. The storm outside the Capitol had passed, but inside the system, it was only getting darker. It was 3:47 a.m. Lena sat in a federal safe-house conference room, fluorescent lights humming above her, legal folders stacked in neat towers around her. Her eyes scanned footage, grainy, time-stamped, emotionless. Police cruiser dashboards, interrogation rooms, edited body cams with minutes missing. Each second told a story louder than any headline. Denise stepped in, clutching her phone. Her expression, somewhere between panic and awe. You're not gonna believe who just called me. Who? Denise turned the phone around. The caller ID said, Daniel Voss, Chief of Internal Audits, Metro PD. Lena narrowed her eyes. On record? He wants to meet, in person, says it's urgent, says he has proof. Set it. 3 hours later, they met in a dim, abandoned church-turned-archive storage on the edge of the city. Rain poured outside. Lightning flickered behind stained glass windows, casting jagged shadows across the pews. Daniel Voss wore a wrinkled suit and fear like a second skin. I wasn't part of it, he said, voice trembling. But I saw everything. He handed over a single USB stick. What's on it? Lena asked. Raw data, internal logs, footage pulled before official reviews. Messages between chiefs, district captains, city attorneys, deleting footage, bribing witnesses, altering timestamps, all of it. Why now? Because I watched what you did, and I realized, if you lose, there's no system left worth saving. Lena pocketed the drive. And what do you want in return? He shook his head. Just to finish it. Back at the DOJ, Lena's team loaded the drive into a secure offline system. As it decrypted, gasps echoed through the room. Ma'am, one agent whispered, this isn't just one precinct. It was cities, counties, state lines crossed, patterns. The data didn't just show corruption, it showed coordination. A cover-up network built like scaffolding around a broken house. Denise whispered, you're going to need protection. Lena replied, I need airtime. At the same hour, Bradley Cooper sat at a diner on the edge of town, hunched in a booth, with a man he didn't recognize. The man wore a navy overcoat, military haircut, no ID badge. You still want to fix this? The man asked. I didn't ask for this mess. Yes, you did, the man cut in. You made the bed. Now you can burn in it or you can flip it. Cooper looked up. What do you want? We need her to slow down. You help us, maybe. You get some of your life back. And if I don't, the man smiled, then you disappear one way or another. He slid a phone across the table. Follow the script, say what we tell you, or go down alone. Cooper stared at the device, then at the door, then back at the man. Meanwhile, Lena called a press emergency. This time, no questions, no press pool, no studio. She streamed it herself, straight to the people. Tonight, she began, I bring to you what the system never wanted you to see. She clicked a remote. On the screen behind her, body cam footage appeared, then texts, emails, documents, with signatures from city officials, payments, redactions, erased tapes. A chain of silences going back 10 years. I have been called angry, dangerous, radical, but let me be clear. Her voice hardened. I'm just prepared. The live stream crossed 2 million views in under an hour. Protests reignited in 3 states within 5. That night, Lena returned to her apartment surrounded by agents. She passed the same photo on her wall, her and Malcolm at his high school graduation. She stared at it for a moment, then whispered, I'm doing this for you. She didn't know the man across the street in a parked black sedan was watching. Didn't see him adjust his earpiece and murmur, she's in. Confirmed visual. Inside a high-rise office in Virginia, the man in the navy overcoat watched the live stream. He turned to his superior. She just lit the fuse. The superior said nothing. He just nodded and picked up the phone. Meanwhile, Cooper sat in his apartment, rehearsing the script they'd sent him. It painted him as a misunderstood officer, as a man tricked by Lena's team. It blamed activist editing and targeted harassment. He read the lines aloud, stopped. Read them again, stopped. Finally, he threw the paper in the trash and pulled out his own phone, started recording. By morning, Lena's team had received the Cooper video, but not from him. It had already gone viral. Cooper, unshaven, eyes dark, voice low. I was wrong. I was arrogant. I thought power made me untouchable. I let the badge blind me. But Lena Jennings, she showed me what justice actually looks like, and I deserve every consequence. The video ended with a whisper. Don't protect people like me. Replace us. Denise nearly dropped the phone. Lena, she didn't smile. She just said, it begins. That afternoon, a judge signed the first multi-state reform order based on Lena's data. Over a dozen precincts were placed under direct federal supervision. More resignations followed, more investigations launched, and still, Lena didn't slow down, because the deeper she went, the closer she got to the names at the top, and they knew it, because somewhere, far from the protests and press, inside a penthouse conference room where names were never spoken out loud, a man lit a cigar and said to the others, she thinks she's cleaning house. But houses like ours, we don't collapse. We adapt. Another man replied, then adapt. Faster, or we all burn with her. And yet somewhere in that room, even they felt it, the shift, the cracking, the scream beneath the silence. By noon, you could feel it in the air. Offices once humming with quiet control, now buzzed with paranoia. DOJ field units moved like a swarm, raiding district headquarters, pulling boxes of sealed evidence, demanding answers from people who'd never been questioned before. Lena stood at the epicenter. Every few minutes, another alert hit her desk. 7. Officers suspended in Charlotte. Mayor of a Texas city under ethics investigation. A private email server found in a precinct captain's garage. It was all happening fast, too fast to spin. Is this what victory feels like? Denise asked quietly, standing beside her. Lena didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the screen. Bradley. Cooper's confession had been replayed 12 million times. I was wrong. Don't protect people like me. Replace us. One clip, one sentence. A full system unraveling. Across the country, police departments scrambled for damage control. PR consultants were brought in. Public apologies were written by lawyers, not leaders. And, in one state, an entire oversight board resigned, quietly in the middle of the night. But it wasn't just fallout anymore. It was fear. Lena's evidence hadn't just named the guilty. It had proven the chain of protection above them. Emails from commissioners, direct orders from elected officials, even bribes disguised as budget bonuses. Every document linked to another. every silence traced to a name, and for once people at the top couldn't hide behind the bottom. That evening, Lena received a call on the secure DOJ line. Blocked ID. She picked up anyway. "Lena," the voice said. "Calm, male, older. Who is this?" "I can't say, but I used to work for the people who are trying to stop you." She didn't respond. He continued. "They're going to pin this on a fall guy, offer him up, close the case, and bury everything else. I won't let that happen. I know. That's why I'm calling." A pause. Then, "You're missing. One name, the one behind all of it." Lena leaned forward. "Give it to me." "No, I'll give you a meeting." "When?" "Tonight." "Where?" He gave her a location. Then the line went dead. Denise didn't like it. This could be a trap. "It could," Lena replied, "but if I don't go, I'm playing defense forever." "You sure about this?" "No, but I'm sure we're running out of time." At 11:14 p.m., Lena entered an old train station slated for demolition. Empty. Platforms, no cameras, just shadows and wind. A man waited near an abandoned bench. Long coat, grey beard. No face she recognized. "You're the real thing," he said. "So are you," she replied. "So talk." He pulled out a manila folder. "Laid out in here. Meeting schedules, bank transfers, board appointments. All linked to one man. Richard." "Holland?" Lena froze. "Holland? As in?" "Yes. Former head of federal police funding, the architect behind what you've been fighting. He built the review systems, built the false audit trails, built the protection net. He's retired." "No. He's moved into think tanks, private councils. He's still pulling strings, quietly but completely." Lena opened the folder. It was all there, every detail. This wasn't just enough to indict a man. It was enough to unmask a legacy. Back at the DOJ, Lena called her team in at midnight. She laid the folder on the table. "This," she said, "is the core." Agents flipped through the evidence. No one spoke. Denise looked at her. "This isn't a storm anymore," she said. "It's a reckoning." By morning, the headlines had changed again. "Cooper not alone. Who else protected abuse? Leaked files connect high-ranking officials to cover-ups. Is this the end of the system as we know it?" In offices across the country, silence turned to chaos. Emergency. Meetings, quick resignations, backroom phone calls. Some officials fled the country, others hired lawyers before breakfast. And all the while, Lena kept moving. She sat with Senate leaders, presented the folder. No preamble, no soft delivery. "This is your chance to choose," she said. "You can protect a man who built a culture of silence, or you can finally start tearing it down." Some senators argued, some accused her of ambition. But one? Senator Ames, a Vietnam vet turned civil rights supporter, he leaned in and said, "Where do we start?" The next steps were set. An emergency oversight committee, subpoenas issued, a live session planned to question Holland himself on national television. The trap wasn't for Lena anymore. It was for the ones who built the silence. At 9:12 p.m. that evening, Lena sat alone in her car outside the Capitol. Rain tapped the windshield. She looked at her hands, steady, then at her reflection in the mirror. Older now, tired, but sharp. Ready. She whispered to herself, "You don't dismantle power with rage, you dismantle it with proof." Then she stepped out. Inside, in a locked-down boardroom, Richard Holland was already pacing. He'd been warned this moment might come, but he never believed it would. He looked out the window. Across the street, protesters held up signs, not with chants of hate, but of hope. "We see you now. Accountability is here." Jennings walked so justice could run. He turned away, and for the first time in his decades of control, he didn't feel powerful. He felt hunted. And Lena, she was just getting started. The hearing room was unrecognizable. This wasn't a courtroom, it was a stage for collapse. Rows of cameras lined the walls. Journalists filled every seat. Civil rights activists, legal scholars, retired officers, even victims' families. all seated in silence, waiting for a reckoning they'd never thought possible. At the center, behind the witness desk, sat Richard. Holland, he wore an expensive grey suit, smooth-shaved, calm face, but his hands gripped the edge of the desk just a little too tight. Across from him, Lena Jennings, seated, still, eyes forward. She didn't blink. Senator Ames struck the gavel. Once, this committee is now in session. A ripple moved through the room like a tremor before the quake. Mr. Holland, Senator Ames began, you stand before this chamber to address a series of damning allegations, including oversight manipulation, unlawful redaction of misconduct, reports and obstruction of justice on a federal scale. I understand, Holland said smoothly, and I am prepared to clear my name. Lena kept watching him, the way he blinked slower than necessary, the way his collar was buttoned one notch too tight, the way he pretended this was just another day in a long political career. She knew that look. It was the look of a man who'd never been told no by anyone with the power to make it matter, until now. The senators took turns. One asked about grant funneling, another about body cam policy drafts, another pulled out an email. Holland had authored 4 years ago, if we release that footage, it will trigger federal attention. Delay it, misdirect. He called it taken out of context. Lena's lips twitched, not a smile, a calculation. She pressed a button on her tablet. A screen lit up behind the hearing bench. Video began to play, not of a protest, not of an arrest, but of Holland himself, in a private meeting room. Unaware he was being filmed, leaning toward 2 state commissioners, saying, "We don't solve these problems, we outlast them." The room gasped, even Holland flinched. "That footage," he stammered, "was illegally. It was provided by a whistleblower under federal protection," Lena said calmly. "Your own assistant." His face dropped. For the first time, a crack, a real one. Senator Ames turned toward Lena. "Miss Jennings, in your professional opinion, was Mr. Holland's role in this system incidental or intentional?" Lena stood, walked toward the center of the chamber. Her heels echoed with every step. "Intentional," she said. "Calculated and sustained." She faced the committee. This man designed an invisible shield for law enforcement misconduct. He embedded language in reform policies that disabled enforcement. He deleted reviews, approved bribes disguised as bonuses, and created a culture where silence was currency. The room held its breath. Then she looked at Holland. "But here's the truth. No matter how long you build a fortress, all it takes is one open door." She turned to the senators again. "I am that door." Outside, the nation watched. Bars, schools, offices, airport lounges, every screen, every pair of eyes, and across every city, a name they'd never heard before became unforgettable. Richard Holland. A protester in Detroit held a sign that read, "He built the silence." She broke. "IT." A teacher paused her history class in Atlanta, pointed at the screen, and told her students, "This is what courage looks like." At the back of the chamber, Denise received a silent text. She opened it, read the message twice, then leaned toward Lena. "They're panicking." "Who?" "The rest of them." Inside a high-security private club in Virginia, several men gathered in a hidden boardroom, phones off, curtains closed. "She exposed the name," one said. "She exposed the system." Corrected another. "What's the move?" No one spoke, because for the first time, there wasn't one. Not yet. The hearing continued. Lena presented financial links. Oversight funds rerouted through shell foundations connected to Holland's private interests. She revealed texts from Holland to a state auditor. "Push the review date. Jennings is sniffing around again." She even unveiled a private memo between Holland and a military contractor offering public control analytics, a polite term for community surveillance. Holland. Ian tried to object, but his voice cracked. Senator Ames leaned in. "Do you deny any of this?" Silence. Then a whisper. "No." Gasps again. But Lena didn't move, because she knew the game was already over. When the hearing adjourned, the crowd didn't cheer. They stood, silent, respectful, overwhelmed, not by a spectacle, but by the quiet, terrifying power of truth, spoken without rage. Outside, the crowd parted as Lena stepped through. People reached out, not for photos, but for gratitude. Hands on her arm, on her shoulder, on her back. "You did it. Thank you. My brother was one of them. My daughter's alive because of you." And for once, Lena felt it. Not validation, not pride, but a release, a weight she didn't realize she'd been carrying, lifting one truth at a time. Back in her car, Denise looked over. "You just made history." Lena looked out the window. "No," she said, "we just exposed it." Far away, in a corner office with a skyline view, Richard Holland sat alone, his face pale, hands shaking. On his desk, a resignation letter. On his phone, dozens of missed calls, but none from friends, only prosecutors, and silence, and across the country, something shifted, not in the laws, not yet, but in the people. The silence. It wasn't safe anymore, because now they had a name and a face who'd made sure they'd never forget it. The day after Richard Holland's televised fall, the world woke up to something different. Not relief, not celebration, just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a massive explosion, where the smoke hasn't cleared yet, where people still wonder what comes next. Lena sat alone at the edge of the reflecting pool outside the Capitol. The early morning mist hovered just above the water, ghost-like and still. She hadn't slept. Her inbox was flooded, her calendar was packed, but her mind was elsewhere. "You look tired," Denise said, approaching slowly, coffee in hand. "I look historic," Lena muttered, accepting the cup with a weak smile. They both knew the truth. Richard Holland was gone. But the scaffolding he built? Still standing. Back at DOJ headquarters, the mood was tense. Lena's testimony had ignited something massive, but reform wasn't a fire. It was a glacier, slow, heavy, resisted at every level. Some states welcomed oversight, others sent legal threats. One governor held a press conference accusing Lena of undermining the integrity of law enforcement with a vendetta. Another labeled her a political tool in a federal power grab. She didn't flinch, because Lena knew what they were really afraid of. Structure. Not chaos. Structure. Permanent laws. Systems that couldn't be reversed when the headlines died. That's why she was back in Washington. That's why she wasn't done. That afternoon, she sat in front of a bipartisan legal task force. She presented the Jennings Bill, a set of reforms aimed at creating an independent federal review board with subpoena power, real-time bodycam data access, and legal immunity for whistleblowers. The room was polite, respectful, but cold. Senator Mallory, a sharp-eyed conservative from Florida, leaned forward. "You're asking us to dismantle the current oversight model." "I'm asking you to replace it with one that works," Lena replied. "Your bill places review power outside local jurisdictions. That's the point. You don't think local governments can police themselves? Not when they've proven they won't." Some murmurs followed, but Lena stood her ground, because this wasn't politics. This was pattern recognition. Behind the scenes, resistance mounted. Private lobbyists met quietly with senators. Law enforcement unions launched ad campaigns attacking Lena's credibility. Online bots flooded her social feeds with fake victim stories meant to discredit her work. Even a forged email began circulating, supposedly showing her ordering the deletion of evidence years ago. It was fake, but it didn't need to be real to do damage. Denise came rushing into her office with a tablet. "They're trying to break you." Lena looked at the screen, saw the Headline, DOJ insider accuses Jennings of misconduct. She sighed. Good, she said. Good. It means we're hitting them where it hurts. Meanwhile, an emergency leak inquiry was launched. Lena gave full access to her files, messages, team records. She had nothing to hide. But 2 days later, a DOJ security officer discovered a data stick in an intern's desk drawer. It contained partial edits of Lena's footage, edited to make her look like she'd rehearsed Cooper's confrontation. It was planted. The intern broke down during questioning. I didn't put it there, he sobbed. I swear, I didn't even know what was on it. But someone had access to his desk, someone inside the DOJ, someone close. Denise locked the door. We've been breached. I know. I mean really breached. Lena looked up. I've gone through every email, every file you've sent. Nothing links to this. Except one thing, Denise whispered. One name keeps coming up. Low clearance, always present, always just outside the room. Lena narrowed her eyes. Who? Denise slid a folder forward. Lena opened it. Her breath hitched. Inside was a photo. Someone she trusted. Someone she trained. Agent Eli Grant, her former assistant. 2 hours later, Eli sat across from Lena in an interrogation room. He looked tired, shaken, but not sorry. You were never supposed to go this far, he said. Lena didn't blink. You planted evidence against me. I was told it would just delay the investigation, give time to reorganize, restructure, not destroy you. Who told you? I can't, Eli, Lena said, voice low. I put my name on your application. I trained you. I vouched. And for you, he looked away. I didn't want to do it. But you were making too many enemies. They said if I didn't help, they'd come after my family. Lena stood. You already let them win. She left without another word. The betrayal stung, not because of politics, but because of proximity. She knew now, the closer she got to change, the more they'd send familiar faces to stop her. That night, Lena received a call. Unknown number. She answered anyway. You don't stop, the voice said. No, you don't fold. No, then we'll see you on the floor. Click. She stared at the screen, then smiled, because if they were calling her now, it meant they knew the Jennings bill was going to vote. By the end of the week, it was official. The Jennings federal oversight bill was scheduled for floor debate. It wouldn't pass easily. It wouldn't pass quietly, but it was real, and it had numbers enough to terrify every backroom alliance in D.C. As Lena walked through the Capitol on the morning of the vote, reporters followed, snapping photos, shouting questions. She didn't stop, didn't wave, didn't answer. She just walked. Because, in a world full of talkers, she had become the one who moved. The marble halls of the Capitol had never felt this loud or this quiet. Every step Lena took echoed through polished stone like it was dragging the weight of a nation behind it. Reporters stood in clusters. Aides whispered. Security swept every hallway twice. It was the day of the floor vote, the day the Jennings bill would stand in front of the system that had tried and failed to silence her. Denise walked beside her, tablet in hand. We have 47 guaranteed yes votes, she said. We need 51. 3 are on the fence. One disappeared. Who? Senator Markell. He hasn't shown up since last night. His staff's not talking. Pressure or payoff? Lena nodded. I'm going in anyway. At 10:02 a.m., the Senate floor opened. Members filed in slowly, some stiff with protocol, others vibrating with anticipation. The gallery filled with journalists, advocates, former victims, retired officers, and quiet figures from Lena's past who had flown across states just to witness this moment. Lena stood behind the security rail, not as a senator, not as a lawmaker, but as the reason they were all here, and somehow that was louder than any vote. Senator Ames opened the floor with a voice that didn't waver. Today, we vote on legislation introduced in the wake of unprecedented exposure of systemic abuse in law enforcement oversight structures. The Jennings Bill represents the first federal-level attempt to create an independent body with full investigative power, accountability enforcement, and transparency for misconduct cases nationwide. A brief pause. Then, debate begins now. The key arguments came fast. Some praised it, some panicked. One senator warned that outsiders shouldn't dictate how communities govern themselves. Another stood and said, if communities had governed themselves justly, this bill wouldn't exist. Lena watched silently, because her part was already done. Now it was about math and conscience. Outside, protesters had begun to gather, signs lifted above heads. Voices echoed through the Capitol lawn. Let her legacy be the law. Truth without teeth is just a story. Pass the bill or resign. The chant built like a drumbeat. Inside, Lena's phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. Leave the building, now. She stared at it, showed it to Denise. Another message. Arrived seconds later. You don't have the votes. Walk away while you still have a legacy, Denise whispered. They're bluffing. No, Lena said. They're warning me. But you're not going to stop. I'm not built. 2. Back inside, the gallery doors opened. Senator Markell walked in. Lena turned sharply. He looked exhausted. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes swollen. He stopped, met Lena's gaze, and nodded. Denise gasped. That's 48. Then something unexpected happened. Senator Crowley, who had remained neutral the entire time, stood and took the floor. No one expected him to speak. He adjusted the microphone, took a breath. I come from a law enforcement family, he began. 3 generations of officers. My father was nearly killed in the line of duty. My uncle served 30 years. I grew up believing police were the last line of defense between chaos and peace. He paused. But over the last several weeks, I've watched the footage. I've read the reports. I've met the families. I've sat across from Miss Jennings. His voice cracked slightly. And I realized something. We were never supposed to be defending the badge. We were supposed to be defending the people. Silence. Then he looked at Lena. I vote yes, Denise whispered. That's 49. More debate, more noise, more spinning. Then, the final motion. Senator Ames stood. We moved to vote on Senate Bill 2381, the Jennings Federal Oversight Act. Click. The board lit up, one by one. Votes came in. Yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, yes. Denise counted under her breath. 50. One more. The room was a storm of tension. Cameras zoomed in. Lena didn't move. Then Senator Mallory pressed his button. The gallery gasped. He had opposed the bill for weeks. The screen blinked. Yes. Applause broke out. Brief, shocked, then loud enough to shake the chamber walls. Senator Ames banged the gavel. The motion passes. The Jennings bill is hereby adopted and shall proceed to the House for ratification. The room exploded. Reporters scrambled. Cameras flashed. Lena stood perfectly still, because in that moment, she didn't need to celebrate. She was the celebration. Outside, protesters cheered. The news spread in seconds. Bill passes with 51 votes. Jennings wins. System shifts, and across social media, one line began trending globally. She didn't shout. She proved. Lena stepped out into the sunlight, arms down, face steady. A child ran up to her, held out a notepad. Can you sign? This, she asked. Lena smiled gently, signed her name. The little girl asked, Are you like a superhero? Lena knelt. No, baby, she said. I'm a reminder. Of what? That silence never wins. Back inside the Capitol, Senator Mallory stood alone in a hallway. His aide asked him, Why'd you flip? He looked out the window, saw the crowd, saw Lena, and simply said, Because the truth got louder. That night, Lena sat on her apartment balcony. The city glowed below. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because this time, She wasn't running. She wasn't reacting. She had become the law. It had been 6 months since the vote. 6 months since Lena Jennings walked out of the Capitol and into history. The Jennings Oversight Board had been formed. Over a dozen federal field offices were now active, reviewing misconduct cases with full subpoena authority. Whistleblower protections were in place. Body cam footage was now uploaded in real time to independent databases. The culture hadn't changed overnight, but it had started to feel exposed, and exposure was power's oldest fear. Lena stood in front of her mirror, adjusting a small silver pin on her blazer. It wasn't flashy, just a simple dove. A symbol the survivors had chosen, for peace that didn't come from silence, but from accountability. Behind her, the television murmured, "Today, Lena Jennings will deliver her farewell address at the National Civil Rights Memorial in Washington. The DOJ confirms she will not seek reappointment after her term expires in 2 weeks." Denise entered, holding a tablet. "Your inbox is a forest fire," she said. "Let it burn." Denise smiled. "You sure you're ready?" "I'm sure I'm done." "Not with the work." "No," Lena said, "just with the fighting." At the memorial, thousands had gathered. Rows of folding chairs stretched under a pale blue sky. Children sat in their parents' laps. Retired officers stood beside. Activists. Grandmothers clutched photos of sons who never came home. At the center of the stage stood a podium carved from black stone. Lena stepped toward it. The applause was instant, thunderous, rising like a wave. She waited. Let it crash. Let it settle. Then she began. "When I was a little girl, my mother taught me 3 things, she said. Tell the truth, keep your back straight, and never eat potato salad from a stranger's kitchen." Laughter rippled through the crowd. She smiled gently. But of those 3 lessons, one followed me further than I ever expected. Telling the truth. She paused. People think truth is loud, that it crashes through the door like a battering ram. But truth is quieter than that. Truth walks in calmly, sits down, opens a folder, and waits. She looked out at the crowd. "And when it's ready, truth makes silence flinch," she continued. "I didn't fight for vengeance. I didn't fight for headlines. I fought for something we were told didn't belong to us. Accountability. And I didn't do it alone. I never could have. This moment, this movement, belongs to every single person who refused to forget, who refused to settle, who refused to say, 'That's just the way it is.'" She looked at Denise in the front row, then further back where Bradley Cooper sat quietly, clean-shaven, unarmed, unrecognized by most, but present. Lena continued, "They called me dangerous. They called me angry. They called me radical. But what they never called me was wrong." Applause again, but she raised her hand, quieted the crowd. "Because this isn't about me. This is about the people who were never given microphones, the names you never heard, the stories buried behind closed cases, the voices erased by paperwork." A single tear rolled down someone's cheek in the 3rd row. "And today, as I step away, I don't ask you to remember me. I ask you to remember them." She leaned closer to the mic. "And if the system ever forgets again, remind it who built the new foundation." When she finished, the silence was sacred. Then came the standing ovation, the kind that didn't come from performance, but from respect, from understanding, from knowing something irreversible had happened in their time. After the ceremony, Lena walked through the garden behind the memorial. Denise caught up. Beside her, "Do you regret anything?" she asked. Lena thought for a long time, then answered softly, "I regret that it had to take so long." Denise nodded. "But I'm glad it was you." They stopped at a stone bench engraved with words from Baldwin. "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." Lena ran her fingers across the letters. "I want to be remembered," she said, "not for changing everything, but for daring to face it." That evening, Lena returned home, turned off her phone, took off her shoes, sat by the window, where the city lights blinked like quiet applause. Her son, Malcolm, arrived later with his daughter. She ran into Lena's arms. "Granny, my teacher says you're a hero." Lena laughed. "I'm not a hero, baby. I'm a mirror." "What's that mean?" "It means I helped people see what was already there." Malcolm hugged her from behind. "Still, you changed everything." "No," Lena said gently. "We just started it." And far across the country, in a small-town police station, a young officer sat at a desk, tired, frustrated. His body cam footage had captured a fellow officer slapping a teenager. He hesitated, then looked at the plaque above. His station's monitor, "Silence never wins." LJ, he clicked upload, and the world shifted again.